Sock knitters have lots of choices for which toes to include in their hand knit socks. But in addition to different types of sock toes, there are different ways to modify sock toes in order to improve and customize the fit. In this week's Technique Tuesday video, I'll show you two variations on the wedge toe that create a wider, rounder shape than the standard wedge toe provides. If you'd like to jump right to a specific point in the video, you can tap or mouse over the video playback area of the screen to reveal the chapter titles and starting points of each section. Please note that this video explains how to adapt the standard wedge toe and assumes you have experience knitting that type of toe. If you're new to the wedge toe and need more complete instructions than what is provided in this video, you will find links to tutorials for both the cuff down and toe up versions down in the video description. This is the standard wedge sock toe that is very commonly used in many sock patterns. It has been for over 100 years. These two are variations on this sock toe. So all three of these started with the same number of stitches. All three ended with the same number of stitches. All three of them had decrease rounds that were worked exactly the same. All three of them have the same number of plain rounds in them, so the resulting toes are all the same length. The difference is in how the plain rounds are distributed, and it's that different distribution that gives these different sock shapes. So I want to go through these three different sock toes and explain how they're the same and how they're different. And then I want to talk to you about how you would go about selecting which one of these versions you would use for the socks that you are knitting. I just want to lay out how the math works for this particular sock toe so that you can follow what is the same or what is different about the other sock toes. So I started with 64 stitches and I ended with 20. This is a very standard way of laying out this type of sock toe. You end with about a third of what you started with. So if I have a 64 stitch sock and I end with a 20 stitch sock, that means that I am going to be decreasing a total of 44 stitches off my needles during the course of knitting this toe. And I'm going to be doing this by working 4 decreases in every round. So that means that the total number of decrease rounds I have is 11. And when you work this type of sock toe, you work a plain round following every decrease round, except for the very last one. Once you've worked the last decrease round, then you graft your stitches. So that means if I have 11 decrease rounds, I only have 10 plain rounds. So the total number of rounds I have for this sock is 21. So when I'm ready to knit my sock toe, getting close to when I want to start my sock toe, I can measure on the foot of my sock how long 21 rows is. And if it's, say, it's 2 inches long, then I know that when my sock is 2 inches shorter than what I want it to be, that would be when I would start my sock toe. So if you want to look at how that's laid out, you can see if you start with 64 stitches and then you decrease, you have this plain round like this. So you can lay it out like this and you can see how that maps out and understand how those 21 rows are distributed. The way that the plain rounds are distributed in this sock toe is that the first third of our decrease rounds are followed by 2 plain rounds. The next third of the decrease rounds are followed by 1 plain round. And then the remaining decrease rounds have no plain rounds following them at all. And so we can see how we distribute those by looking at what we started with before, which was 1 plain round after each of them. If we know if we have 11 decrease rounds, a third of those is about 4 decrease rounds. So we have 4 decrease rounds here, and we have 4 decrease rounds here, and then we only have 3 at the beginning. So that's roughly 1/3 for each of those. So we want to eliminate these 3 decrease rounds at the end, but we want to add them down here. And so when we do this, we can see that we still have the same number of total rounds that we had if we were doing the regular wedge toe. This toe is a little different. We still have the same number of decrease rounds because we start with the same number of stitches and end with the same number of stitches. So we have 11 decrease rounds altogether. But we're going to be working the plain rounds in a very specific way. After the first decrease round, we're going to work 4 plain rounds. After the second decrease round, we're going to work 3 plain rounds. After the third decrease round, we're going to work 2. After the fourth, we're going to work 1. And then we're going to work the remaining of the decrease rounds consecutively. We can add up all of those plain rounds. 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 10 plain rounds. So we can look at that and we can say, well, we still have the 11 decrease rounds. And the total number of plain rounds we have is 10. And so we still have 21 rounds for this sock toe. So all 3 of these have 21 rounds. So let's look at if we had 56 stitches and we wanted to reduce it down to about 1/3, that would give us 16 stitches. So that would mean that we are eliminating 40 stitches over the course of the sock toe, and at 4 decreases per round, that means we have 10 decrease rounds. If we are working a wedge toe, where we are working a plain round after every decrease round except the final one, then we would have 9 plain rounds. So that would be 19 total rounds for a sock toe that was shaped like this. If we wanted to do the thirds, and the thirds, then we could again divide things up. Oh, I did this wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So if we divide these up, so we have 3 decreases, and then 4 decreases. Again, we could take these 3 decrease rounds and put them here, and we would end up with the same number of rounds that we'd have it was a standard wedge toe. But if we were using the 4, 3, 2, 1 scenario, we would know that our total decrease rounds was 10. But our total plain rounds would also be 10 because it would always be 10 if we're doing 4, 3, 2, 1. So in this case, instead of 19 rounds, we were going to have 20. It's only 1 round difference if we decide to use this version, the 4, 3, 2, 1 version. If we start with 72 stitches and we want to, 1/3 of that would be 24 that we would end with. So we would be doing 48 decreases altogether. And at 4 per round, then we would have 12 decrease rounds. And for the standard wedge toe, this one right here, that means we would have 11 plain rounds, and so that would be 23 total rounds. If we wanted to do the thirds, here we have 12 actual decrease rounds, and if we divide those, we're only going to have 3 up here to eliminate and add down here. When we eliminate these 3, we're going to be adding a 4th one. So we're actually going to have 1 extra round. We're going to have 24. If we do the thirds, we're going to have 24 instead of 23. If we do the 4, 3, 2, 1 toe, again, we're only going to have 10 plain rounds. So we have our decrease rounds, which is 12, and we have our 10 plain rounds, and that would give us 22. In this scenario, with 72 stitches, we would have 22 rounds for the 4, 3, 2, 1. We would have 24 rounds if we were doing the thirds, and we would have 23 rounds if we were doing the wedge toe. So again, you are 1 round off in one direction or another, but that's how you would calculate those. The sock that I'm wearing right now was knit using this type of sock toe, and you can see that my toes are not shaped like this, and yet the sock toe itself fits my foot very well. The way that this type of toe is intended to fit is that one of the lines of decreases comes up along the side of the great toe, and then this straight part and the other line of decreases rides along the top of the toes all the way across. So one line of decreases comes up the side of the foot, and the other line of decreases in the straight part comes across the very top of the toes. So that fits my foot really well, but it doesn't fit everybody's foot really well. So let's talk about why you would choose one shape over another. This is a tracing of my toe. If we look at my foot tracing, you can see that my big toe is the tallest of all of my toes, and I have, an angle to my toes that's pretty consistent all the way down. This is where my toe actually, my foot actually starts getting narrower. My little toe is going in right here, and I also have an indent here on that side of my foot. So this is where I want to actually start making decreases, because this is where my foot gets smaller. And my toe is about 2 inches in length, which is pretty average and consistent. So this is why that standard wedge toe works really well for my toe shape. Here I have tracings of 2 of my friends. So my friend Rosemary, we can see that her little toe goes in right here, and then she goes pretty straight for a while, and she's got another toe, and then these 3 toes are almost all the same length. So her foot shape, it gets gradually smaller, and then all of a sudden all of the toes are ending at the same time. She is a person who would probably do really well with a toe shape like this, because it keeps the width of the toe wider for longer. She might do really well with this one. I don't really know. It could depend on how much room she just likes to have. Not just that she needs more room in her sock toe, but that she likes to be able to wiggle her toes. So what I would do for her is start with this one and see how she likes it, if she thinks it fits her foot really well. And then the next time I knit her pair of socks, I might try this toe and have her try it on. And if she liked it better, then I would know that from now on I'm going to knit those. If she liked the other one better, I might rip this one out and then re-knit the toe according to her preferred shape. This is my friend Helen. This dot right here shows you where her big toe separates from her second toe. Her little toe is way down here. Like me, she has this angle to her toe, but her angle is much longer and steeper than mine. If I look at this place right here where her foot is starting to get narrower, if I measure that length, her toe is 2.5 inches long, where my friend Rosemary is only about 1 3/4 inch in length. So Rosemary needs a shorter toe and a wider toe, while my friend Helen needs a much longer toe. So for my friend Helen, I probably wouldn't use one of those wider toes. I might use this one, but I would modify this in order to increase the length. So the video I did on the cuff down version of a wedge toe explains how to add additional plain rounds to get the length that you want. But this isn't the only option. I don't only have to choose which way of modifying a wedge toe in order to get a good fit for somebody. So this is the round toe. So this is the long version of the round toe, and this is the short version of the round toe. So for these 2 sock toes, there are different numbers of plain rounds, but also the distribution is different. For this one, the distribution is exactly the same, 2 plain rounds after every decrease round, and it creates kind of a shorter, wider, rounder toe, where this one creates something a little bit longer. So for my friend Helen, I might choose to do something like this because I think it would really suit her toes well. And for my friend Rosemary, I might choose to do this round toe for her, or I might choose to do one of these wedge toes that I can get a wider shape to it. It just depends. And part of the fun of sock knitting is experimenting with different heels and toes. For my friend Rosemary, either one of these might suit her just perfectly fine, and it might just be up to my whim which one I'd choose for a given pair of socks. And for my friend Helen, this one would work, I'm sure, really well. But I could also modify this wedge toe to increase the length in order to fit her foot. One of the most satisfying aspects of sock knitting is being able to customize the fit of a sock to the recipient's foot based on their fit issues and preferences. For more videos on customizing your socks, you might like these playlists over here. I also have an in-depth written sock tutorial available in my Ravelry shop, which I will link to down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.